Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, and today we're going to talk about the hidden meanings of Yom Kippur, which is the holiest day of the year. Well, let's start exactly with the basic Judaism, and then of course we go a lot deeper in our talk. Now, Yom Kippur comes right after Rosh Hashanah, the New Year. New Year is the first day of the Hebrew month of Tishrei. Yom Kippur is the 10th day, so about a week, a little more than a week later. And Rosh Hashanah is the time when everybody is judged. And when I say everybody, it's of course a Jewish holiday. It's the Jewish high holidays, it's called, because they are so important. But on the other hand, it's like everybody in the world, everything in the world is really being judged. That's a one-year cycle. You can say, well, you get judged. How many times do you have to get judged? Once a lifetime, every 10 years. But it's a one-year cycle. It's a beautiful idea of time. Time in Judaism goes on different cycles because it's on the lunar calendar. And the lunar calendar is different than the solar calendar. And the lunar calendar goes according to the moon. And the moon waxes and it wanes. And that's typical of the Jewish people, as in throughout their history, has their ups and has their downs. In any case, at a Rosh Hashanah, everybody's being judged. But then you have 1 week, God gives you maybe, I don't know how to say it in English, maybe not an appeal, but things are hanging. It says the righteous people on the high holidays of Rosh Hashanah are judged for life right away. They're good, no question about it. The bad people are bad, no question about it. But listen, most people are in the middle, some gray area. And God says, I'm going to think about it for about a week. And of course, we try to shine ourselves up as much as possible. Of course, I always have a story for everything. I knew one person so many years ago, and he was more of a hippier person. I kind of knew him. And he always went to drugs. Now they're legal, but of course in some states, but he was selling drugs. And finally the police picked him up. And then I said, all right, you're going to go to trial? He says, yes. And all of a sudden, he's wearing a suit, which I never saw him with a suit before. And he got a haircut, which was very straggly looking. Like I said, like hippie-like. I said, ooh, what's up? He said, well, I got to go to court. And I got to present myself as a normal-looking human being. So that's really typical, and that's exactly a good lesson for us, that on Rosh Hashanah, of course, that we're being judged. And like I just said, well, let's check it out. You have some good merits, and certain things aren't so good. We're going to really check it out on Yom Kippur. And on Yom Kippur is the day, the final judgment. So therefore, everybody shines themselves up. There's no eating or drinking on Yom Kippur because the Bible says it's a day of affliction, and not eating and drinking is affliction. We don't mean you have to knock your head against the wall. You don't afflict yourself that way. But on the other hand, we do have an idea of afflicting through not eating and not drinking. I always tell the story also. I have my million stories that I tell, that I had to take a blood test, and they said, well, don't eat. So to me, don't eat means like don't eat and don't drink, like I just said. And then only a few times later, they said, oh, you could drink water. I said, well, to me, that's not fasting. I mean, in Jewish law, that wouldn't be fasting. But for a medical test, you can drink as much as you want, drink water as much as you can. But here it's no eating and drinking, afflicting yourself. You're just really focusing on doing the right thing. Not let's have a good party and let's have a nice food. It's not for enjoyment. It's scary. I mean, again, I never went through this. You can only, again, imagine that when a person is really up, not only for a few years in jail, as a sentence, as that would be the max, but literally it's a life and death sentence. And you can only imagine what that really means when you're really on trial. So you're scared. You're not there to party. And you're not here to eat and drink. You're only scared. Just, hey, get me through this year. I'll be better. Please forgive me. You can always ask also, well, wait a minute. It's every year. And let's face it, the old joke even on January 1st, how many people make New Year's resolutions, and let's be honest, how many people keep them? And that's like any human being, that's what we are. Hopefully a little bit we keep, but in any case, that we don't do that much differently from one year to another. So now you're going in front of the Almighty and saying, well, I'll be better. Now I'm going to be better. Well, pal, you said that last year, the year before, 5 years, 10 years. You've been constantly saying that, and we don't see any improvement. So why should the Almighty, come on, cut the baloney. You've been saying that year after year, and nothing's been better. Just forget it. We don't accept your apologies. We don't accept your New Year's resolutions. So you could say that. But again, on the other hand, the Almighty He is merciful to no end, and that means no end, that he keeps on forgiving people. Very interesting. The Tanya, basic work of Chabad Hasidus, explains that, asking for forgiveness. It says that you have to give forgiveness to any person who wrongs you. And all right, someone insults you a little bit, or they did something a little bit wrong, but even the Talmud actually says, and he brings this down as an example, that what if accidentally someone cuts off their hand? I mean, that's not just a little insult, that's a major tragedy, to say the least. And a person says, hey, I'm sorry. And he says that if he says he's sorry on 3 different occasions, you have to forgive him, even though he did cause you a lot of harm, of course. But you have to forgive him because he is apologetic, and the person who doesn't take their apology, then accept their apology, then that person's really a mean person, because that person's apologizing. Why can't you say, all right, I forgive you? And it's interesting that the Talmud gives a backup for this situation. Again, you have to go into the prophets in the Bible, but very interesting that Saul, who was the first Jewish king, now he, because, I try to make a long story short, of course, I'm totally editing it, but there were Gibbonim, these people that hid David, and David was the successor, but not like we have elections today. Yeah, the Democrats, the Republicans, no one's after each other, no one tries to harm each other. It's all in an orderly fashion, which is beautiful in our society. But in those days, Saul didn't want to give up the kingship. And so therefore, David, who was really his son-in-law, was a very big competitor against him. And therefore, David he could have got killed. Again, those are ancient times. And David ran away. These Gibbonim hid him. They didn't know. They thought, the son-in-law, what did he do wrong? Saul found out about it, and they said, we didn't know, and he killed them. He killed some of them, not all of them. And then when David eventually did take over, he says, please forgive Saul, my father-in-law. He did wrong, yes, but please forgive him. They say, no way. No way? You don't forgive somebody? So David said, the Gibbonim, even though they tried to be Jewish, you can't be Jewish, they said, because a Jewish person is always nice to people, and you forgive them. We see a lot of times in the Middle East, if people are objective and they see that, how the Israelis treat their neighbors, even though they say they want to annihilate them. Let's not get into politics now, but you see that's the Jewish way of doing things. So in any case, that if that's what God expects of us, for human beings, surely he's not a hypocrite, and we expect that of him also, that even though we messed up, and again we messed up time after time after time, nevertheless, that the Almighty, we're asking, please forgive us one more time, and inscribe us in the book of life to have a good year. Now that's really the basic Judaism. It's beautiful in its own right, but we're going to get deeper. Now really it says that Yom Kippur is one day. Now if you see on the Jewish holidays, really the Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the year, is really 2 days. where you see on Passover, for example, people always observe Passover. It's two seders, one after one night and then the second night. So then you can ask, why is Yom Kippur only one day? Well, again, there is a basic Judaism answer for that too. How are you supposed to fast for 2 days in a row? That'd be almost impossible. I mean, I don't know, impossible, but 48 hours is a little much, to say the least. So therefore, all right, 1 day is enough. But again, like I'm saying, we're actually looking for a deeper reasons for Yom Kippur. Now, one shows on the oneness of God. 1 day of Yom Kippur, 1 day of God. It's one special people. Even though we say everybody is equal, listen, some people are holier than others. They're the Levium, even amongst the Jews. The Levites, the Levi, tribe of Levi, that they worked in the temple and taught the Jewish people. You had the Kohanim, who are the priests, and they actually worked and they brought the sacrifices, very, very holy. And even amongst the priests, we have the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, his job was really this one time a year, the one holiest man, the high priest of the Kohanim, the priests, and he worked on 1 day on Yom Kippur, and in the holiest place on the planet, which was the Holy of Holies, in the temple, which was in the holy city of Jerusalem. Now everything is one. And actually it's a very interesting idea, again, comparing basic Judaism to deeper Judaism. So he had beautiful vestments. Nowadays, again, rabbis like myself, they have a nice suit, a fine. But maybe if you see the Sephardic, meaning the Middle East rabbis, which not too many Jews in the Middle East, but they still have a big group in Israel. They have very big turbans and beautiful robes. And a person, a high official, should have them. Listen, we don't have nobility that much today, but look at the Queen and of England and the Prince and the Princess. When, all right, a lot of times they just go out with their nice suits and dresses, but when they have their robes, they're nobility. They have very special vestments. So too the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. He was, again, very special, and therefore he had these beautiful robes. Now, he had different types of robes. He had gold robes, and he had white robes. So what would you think when he went into the temple? Which kind of robes would he wear? Well, you think gold. Gold is the nicest. Gold vestments, beautiful. Then gold is the precious metal. But no, he wear the white. So now we have a difference between basic Judaism and we have a deeper Judaism. Basic Judaism says that, again, we're trying to apologize and ask forgiveness for our sins on Yom Kippur. Well, that's what the high priest tried to do on behalf of the Jewish people, even though every person has to do it themselves. But he was the leader and he would ask for help. But what would gold symbolize? Well, way back 3,000 years ago, God would say, "Ooh, I remember the golden calf." And the Jewish people worshiped the golden calf only 40 days after God spoke to them on Mount Sinai. And God says, "Oh, that reminds me, I'm so mad. I'm still mad, even though thousands of years went later. And nevertheless, we don't want to remember that. We don't want God to remember that. So instead of the gold, the white robes were worn by the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. All right, so that's, again, basic Judaism. White, though, so get the thread of what we're saying. It's one special man, holiest man, in one special place, on one special time, Yom Kippur. He's wearing white, which is really the purest, clear color that you can have. So everything is oneness. Everything is together. And what that symbolizes is that, of course, God is one. It's monotheistic. There's only one God in the world. And from that God, he's so high and so pure that everything becomes equal. Everything becomes merged into the same kind of pureness. And that's what we're looking for on Yom Kippur. Because, listen, there are bad things we do and there's good things we do. And, listen, there's scales and hopefully the good outnumber the bad. But even if they don't, ultimately we want the purest level, the Jewish people being pure, the Kohen Gadol being the purest man, again, as we're saying, the highest level of oneness where everything equalizes, and that's where God can forgive the Jewish people. So that's a very deep idea why there is these places and oneness in one day and not 2 days. Everything is one because, like I said before, usually Judaism doesn't have just one day. Usually it's 2 days Passover, like I said, 2 days of this holiday, 2 days of that holiday. Where's where there's only one, only on Yom Kippur, but that symbolizes that special oneness and specialness that the Jewish people have in themselves, and that is really where the forgiveness comes from. Now this Yom Kippur, there's another sort of sacrifice in a certain sense, but a ritual, and that they took two almost identical goats. Now, what they would do with them on Yom Kippur? They would bring one as a sacrifice on the temple, on the altar, and one they put red ribbons around the necks of these goats, and they would take the other goat, and there was a cliff near Jerusalem, and they'd throw the goat off the cliff. And that's actually, a lot of times I always like Hebrew-English words. They're very identical, but a lot of nice phrases that we have in the English language that we speak about really come from a biblical source. And here is one of them, that he says that person, when you talk about it, that person was a scapegoat. So it was a scapegoat. And here's exactly it. It is from the Bible. It's exactly the service that we're talking about. So now you have an understanding of where this comes from. They would just throw the goat off the cliff, and miraculously, that the red ribbon on the goat that was still alive and were ready to be sacrificed would turn white. And that would again symbolize that, again, in our prophets, that they do a lot of prophecies in the Bible, of course. And they would say that if your sins are as red means like bloody, that's kind of idea, bad or bloody, as scarlet, meaning red, they'll be white as snow, meaning white, pure, and we say that pure is the snow. So red symbolizes bloody, white is the white is the purity, and it miraculously changed that ribbon on the goat's neck. And so therefore that would symbolize that the Jewish people were all forgiven. Now another interesting idea, very, very mystical actually, is that what would happen on Yom Kippur, because we are talking about the hidden meaning of Yom Kippur, very, very mystical, that again the high priest in the Holy of Holies would mention the very, very the special four-letter name of God, which was expanded. It's a little hard for me to explain it without a thing. They would use different letters to 72-letter names of God. Now, you go to a service in the Jewish temple, or you say a blessing. You don't have to be in a service. You say a blessing. You use God's name. Fine. Blessed art thou, O God. Again, if you're eating an apple, King of the universe, created the fruit from the tree. Fine. There's many, many blessings, and many, many times in the prayer books we use God's name. Fine. But really, it's not 100% what we're saying, because in Hebrew and in English, it's very interesting. You say Lord and God, maybe you would say Almighty. You have a few synonyms for the Almighty God. But in Hebrew, besides that special 72-letter name, and getting very mystical, there are 10 different names of God in the Hebrew. And why are there 10? Because there are 10 spheros or emanations that coming from the heavens. And God is, of course, one. We just said that. On the other hand, he could deal with the world or a person totally according to their feelings. And I give this example when I teach this, so I'm going to teach you also, that, all right, even look at me. I'm one person. I don't change. So right now, I'm a director of a television show. I'm imparting Torah wisdom to the people. I go home to my wife. She calls me my husband. I go to the kids. You're my daddy. I go talk to other rabbis. You're my colleague, and on and on. If I have employees, you're the boss. To my boss, I'm just a worker. So, wait a minute, I just gave about 5, 6 different descriptions of who I am. Who am I? Well, I'm only one person, of course. I don't change, going from here to studio to home to work. But on the other hand, I deal with people differently, and I deal people different with me differently, kids or wife or employees, differently than what I am. So it depends on the situation. And that is a good example of the God over here. He's one God, but he could be tough and warlike. He could be kind. He could be merciful. Of course, that's what on Yom Kippur we're saying, please don't be so judgmental. Have you say in Yiddish, if people know Rachmanis, have a compassion, a pity on us. So please just deal with us in a compassionate way. Again, using just a normal example that we're so familiar with. You know, you see judges and you see them on TV, you hear about them. You know, someone comes in and does a crime. You say, I'm sorry. Okay, it's your first time, let it go. You know, we'll let you off the hook. And other times they come down hard on people. And again, I do prison visitation. And, you know, I can meet a few people there with saying they did the same crime, and one guy has a few years and one guy has 10 years. So I said, what happened? He says, well, you know, they didn't plead the case correctly or they brought it to court. But again, for the same offense, you could have different punishments or being let off the hook altogether. So that's really what we're talking about on Yom Kippur also. We want to see that the compassion, the kindness, which is very interesting because these 10 spheros that we said, these 10 different emanations, also have different colors to them. Now, white is kindness, kind of we said pure as snow, kindness, and the red is gevura, tough. Like you see, what's the flag of the Marine Corps? It's red. You know, we're tough and it's going to be bloody. That's the reason for the red flag of the Marine Corps. So they're tough people. That's what Marine Corps are. That they are very tough, and that's why it's red. And you want to have just like people are nice and kind. It's more like us, like they say today, snowflakes, and therefore they're white. In any case, that this is the different levels of the way we act, and God reacts to us the way we're asking for mercy, number one, and number two, not only asking for mercy, hopefully that the Almighty responds, but like getting to back to the point that even though there's different names for God, we really don't say the deepest level for godliness. We don't say that name, and that's the Yud with the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey. Why not? They said it in the temple, but we're not that holy. We're just not the holiest people because we're in exile. The temple is not there. If you go to Jerusalem, and it'd be worthwhile to go to Israel. On the other hand, all you would see is a western wall. One wall out of a whole structure. And it was one of the most beautiful buildings, the Talmud says. It's one of the most beautiful buildings in the world. The most beautiful building in the world. So we're not at that level. We're on a lower spiritual level than they were in the temple. So therefore, that's why we don't say God's name outright, or the real name of God, named the holiest name of God. On the other hand, that in the temple, like I just said, and you have the high priest, the holiest man. We don't have high priests, but we do have Kohanim, people who say their father, back thousands of years. Our priests, our Kohanim, nowadays there's nobody as a high priest. But in those days, like we just said, there was. And therefore, that high priest would then say the 72-letter holiest name of God. And it was so holy and it had such spiritual ramifications. people would fall on their faces because of the sheer spiritual bolt that they would get from hearing God's name. And these 72-letter names of God would be so holy, like again, tying it back into that oneness, into the greatness of God, and because it's really his holiest name, everybody would be forgiven and for what they did in the temple, and again, hoping everybody also would be tuned in order to have a good year. Again, it's a very interesting discussion in the Talmud. Is it like I just said, that no matter what, Yom Kippur is just the holiest day, the Kohen, the Gadol, the high priest doing his thing, and everybody is forgiven no matter what? That is one opinion in the Talmud. The other opinion, which is really the one we go by, is you have to do something to be forgiven. Really what we were saying before, you have to ask for forgiveness, not just to show up or do nothing and say, well, it's a holy day and I'm going to get forgiven anyway. Where does it make a difference what I do? That really we have to ask for forgiveness, tuning up, as we said earlier, tuning up ourselves, like that example of that college guy that got a haircut and put on nice clothes in front of the judge, but we do it spiritually. Of course, you wear your nice clothes on Yom Kippur, and you actually ask for forgiveness. Of course, I have another one of my cute stories that I heard actually from a comedian, and one of the things, I only said two of the things, not eating and not drinking, to afflict yourself, but also not wearing leather shoes. Now, I know sometimes these sneakers cost more than leather shoes today, but on the other hand, that leather was the special shoe thousands of years ago. So you shouldn't wear leather shoes to synagogue on Yom Kippur. You only can wear sneakers or different kind of just non-leather shoes, whatever they are. Slippers, people wear slippers sometimes. In any case, the one comedian told a joke. He just came into synagogue during the year and he didn't know the formality of things. Of course, you come to synagogue, especially on the Sabbath, on the Shabbos, you wear nice clothes. You put on a nice suit. It says there, wear the nicest clothes that you have. Of course, your leather, nice shoes. And you dress up when you go to the synagogue. It's only nice. Well, he didn't know it. So, and Chabad group, which I'm part of, we take in everybody. We don't throw people out. Oh, you're not wearing the right thing. You're wearing blue jeans. You can't come. We just accept everybody. And he was wearing regular clothes, and he was wearing his gym shoes. And he said that I felt a little bit, he was sensitive. He said it was out of place. Everybody's wearing nice suits, and black shoes, nice shoes, all dressed up for the synagogue. So he said that, all right, if that's the way to do it, I learned my lesson, I'm going to do it that way also. So next time he comes, he wears the nice shoes and black leather shoes instead of his sneakers. And then again he felt like an oddball because he showed up for Yom Kippur. That's a joke. I don't know if it's totally true, but that's what he was joking around. He didn't know. A lot of times newcomers, there's so many different rituals, like I say, what to wear sometimes on Yom Kippur, and what to say, and what to do, and stand up here, and sit down there. People are a little bit stranger, so we just take everybody in and just help them along and teach them. But he's making a joke, but in any case, maybe it was true. I don't know. He said it as a joke. Maybe it was true that people show up for Yom Kippur with leather shoes. Hey, it's Yom Kippur. You said it's a holy day, and I got to go to synagogue. Why should I wear my best shoes, my nice leather shoes? But in any case, that is one of the other afflictions, that shouldn't wear leather shoes. Even like I said, it's all funny because sometimes these sneakers cost more than leather shoes altogether. But in any case, that's the way that it was. The rabbi set it up. Leather in the olden days was very, very special shoes. So that's Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the holiest day, and it's the holiest man. And we read one more idea. There's just really so many ideas, of very deep ideas, is just that on Yom Kippur, I know it's a long service if anybody gets through it, and not that many can come to shul, and many people can't go through the whole service. but everything really is meaningful if you get into it. And in the afternoon service, additional service, which usually is in the afternoon already, that they talk about the 10 martyrs. And this is 2,000 years ago under the Roman occupation in Israel. And the Roman government, even though, again, in the textbook, they show how they made the aqueducts, I know, and the Roman Senate. And they were advanced society on one hand. On the other hand, they were very vicious against people who, rebelled against them for any reason. And some of these rabbis, not that they fought at all, but they were just saying, hey, we would do it the Torah way, the Jewish way, which is a little different. We should get along. You should, according to Torah, with the government and with society, get along with everybody. But, ultimately we are different. There's kosher food, and like we just said, there's the Sabbath. We don't work on the Sabbath. So a little bit we are different, even though you get along. But they just, like I say, vicious. They couldn't stand it. In any case, they put these 10 martyr rabbis to death, and they talk about them, not at length, but a paragraph each, on Yom Kippur. And again, what's the reason for it on Yom Kippur? It was just to bend our hearts a little bit. People go around and everything's all right. I mean, I know not for everybody, but things are good, and here I am with my family in the synagogue, and things are going along in life pretty well. I mean, everybody has a little problem. Nobody has 100% not problems. But then people feel that, things are good. Maybe you come to God and, maybe like you go to a boss. Hey, I had a good year. Listen, I deserve a raise. I mean, maybe you go to the boss that way. Look what I accomplished. And I'm very important to this company. So it could be maybe you come with that attitude to God also. Hey, it's been a good year. I did well. I think I deserve a raise. I deserve surely a good year, and even a little better than last year. You could have that attitude, but that's not the proper attitude. You come to the Almighty. And the proper attitude is being bent, subjugated, and feeling bad, and feeling that, hey, I'm nothing. I'm an infinitesimal creature in this universe, and I'm asking for the mercies of God, because whatever you do is never good enough in any case. So even if you were great, you come to God and like a little child begging their father, have mercy, you're my father, have mercy upon me and give me the good year. So a little bit that's the reason for the 10 martyrs, that we should feel bad. Listen, what we deserve and what we get, is only with the grace of God, and only for the good things that not we deserve it, you come to God and have mercy on me. So in any case, so that was the basic Judaism, but also the hidden, deeper meaning of what Yom Kippur is all about. And hopefully this makes your holiday a little bit more meaningful, because I know a lot of people say it's a long service, which really it is a long service. But if you're into it, time flies, and it becomes a very, very interesting and a deeply motivating and mystical experience, especially not eating. People ask me always on the last note, oh, doesn't it bother you not eating or drinking? I says, it's more uplifting. You don't care about the food. Your mind is clear, your heart is clear, and it becomes a very, very moving experience. So thank you very much for listening to my Yom Kippur, but the bottom line is we should all have good years, sweet years, and everything we need. Thank you very much.